Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a corporate case study that literally sent shockwaves through the tech world. We're talking about the TCS Nashik case. Look, if you track corporate governance, crisis management, or if you're just kind of curious about how a massive global organization handles a sudden, severe local crisis, well, consider this your masterclass in real-time problem solving. Let's get right into it.
Because here's the million-dollar question, right? How do you restore trust when your formal policies completely fail? I mean, it's easy to have a pristine, perfect code of conduct sitting on paper at your global headquarters, but what happens when the reality at a regional branch tells a totally different story? Today, we're going to look at what happens when the rubber actually meets the road.
To make sense of all this, here's our roadmap. We're going to cover 1. The TCS Nashik crisis itself, 2. The corporate response, 3. The industry's reaction, 4. The governance challenge, and 5. The stakeholder strategy.
All right, kicking things off with Part 1, the TCS Nashik crisis.
So the core tension in this case is honestly pretty stark. On one side, you have this globally respected corporate entity, right? They've got highly developed, formal ethical policies. But on the other side, the on-the-ground reality at their regional branch in Nashik, and the crisis really stems from the massive disconnect between these two worlds. It begs the question, how does a global giant actually maintain a supportive corporate culture all the way down to its smallest branches? Because, as we'll see, when a gap opens up there, crisis inevitably follows.
Now, the allegations that surfaced at the Nashik Center were severe. We're talking about serious workplace harassment and coercion targeting a specific group of employees. But honestly, the most alarming takeaway here, especially from a governance perspective, is the failure of internal mechanisms. The POSH systems, that's prevention of sexual harassment, these are designed as the ultimate fail-safe to protect employees, right? Well, they seemingly just did not function. The shield broke. And when standard internal HR processes fail to flag coercion, it means the very architecture meant to protect your workforce has a critical, glaring vulnerability.
Moving on to Part 2, the corporate response. So TCS had to react fast, and the response followed a pretty classic, if slightly rocky, crisis timeline. Step 1 was essentially physical triage, getting staff out of that environment by offering work from home. Step 2 is that standard, almost instinctual corporate reflex, initial denial of early complaints. It's that predictable moment of friction where headquarters kind of hopes the fire will just burn itself out. But by Step 3, the severity hit them. This triggered an independent investigation and brought in board-level oversight. And Step 4 cemented it, bringing in external heavy hitters to manage the damage.
And what's really fascinating here is the caliber of that external help. TCS brought in Deloitte and Tri-Legal to act as independent counsel to the internal probe. You guys, you don't bring in players of this size unless you need absolute, bulletproof objectivity. It sends a very clear signal to employees, investors, and clients alike, hey, this investigation has board-level oversight. We aren't just sweeping this under the rug. Because when a crisis reaches this level of public scrutiny, internal audits simply don't have the currency to buy back public trust. You literally have to rent credibility from respected third parties.
Alongside that probe, TCS issued a firm reaffirmation of their core values. They stated they are, quote, committed to the safety, dignity, and well-being of every employee, holding the highest standards of employee welfare and conduct across all locations. It's an essential corporate anchor. You have to remind the world of your global standard, especially while a local branch is completely under the microscope.
Which brings us to Part 3, the industry's reaction.
As you can imagine, rival companies were extremely quick to clarify their own positions. Infosys stepped right up to say they, quote, maintain a zero-tolerance approach to any form of discrimination and have well-established policies. It's a classic, necessary move to maintain industry confidence, right? They need to assure their own clients that these issues are strictly isolated. It perfectly illustrates the contagion effect in corporate crises. When one giant stumbles, everyone else immediately checks their own footing to make sure they aren't going to fall too.
Tech Mahindra quickly deployed a really similar defensive strategy. They echoed the sentiment, stating they're, quote, committed to building an inclusive, respectful workplace where every individual is treated with dignity and fairness. They are essentially reinforcing the walls of their own corporate governance. They want to assure clients that this is just a localized fire, not some industry-wide inferno. Because in the global IT sector, reputational damage to just one firm can easily make international clients super nervous about the entire region's standards.
And you know, it wasn't just competitors reacting. The industry body itself had to weigh in. NASSCOM came out swinging in support of the tech sector at large, highlighting that, quote, the Indian technology industry operates under strict governance frameworks and clear standards for employee safety. This was an absolutely vital statement. They had to defend the overarching reputation of the Indian IT sector on the global stage.
Okay, let's pivot to part 4, the governance challenge.
For this part, I want you to step into the shoes of leadership for a second. Imagine you've just been appointed as the Chief Ethics and Governance Officer for TCS. Your desk is immediately covered in these massive tasks. First, you have to form a brand new ethics and governance team. Then, you need to design a robust tracking system so complaints never, ever fall through the cracks again. You've got to develop foolproof reporting mechanisms for issues. And fundamentally, you have to propose and allocate a specific budget to make this all happen. Your job is guaranteeing uniform ethical standards across a sprawling global footprint. That means ensuring a manager in a small regional hub operates with the exact same integrity as an executive sitting at global HQ. So, I pose this to you. What is the budget you're going to propose to the board, and how exactly do you plan to allocate it among these tasks? And you've got to think way beyond just PR here. Think about the massive enterprise costs of tracking software, the premium salaries for continuous external auditors, or the travel and training programs required for regional managers. It involves deploying legal teams to review local compliance and setting up independent whistleblower hotlines monitored 24/7. Managing governance at scale isn't just a simple policy update. It's a deeply practical, highly expensive resource allocation challenge.
Finally, part 5, the stakeholder strategy.
All right, change hats with me one more time. You are now the Global Communications Head of TCS. You've got 3 entirely different audiences watching this crisis unfold, and they require 3 distinct responses. Clients demand to know their data and operations are perfectly secure. Investors? Well, they want assurance that the company isn't facing massive legal liabilities that are going to tank the stock. And employees need to know they are actually safe and that leadership is taking real action. You cannot send the exact same email to all 3 groups. You need a highly nuanced strategy for each one. Say the wrong thing to investors, the stock drops. Say the wrong thing to employees, and you trigger a massive exodus of talent.
Balancing these needs is incredibly delicate. Your ultimate goal here is to restore credibility while managing diverse stakeholder anxieties, all without admitting undue legal liability. It is a total tightrope walk. You must project total transparency and decisive action, like bringing in Deloitte and Trilegal, while simultaneously defending the corporate entities from ruin. Every single public statement, every internal memo, is heavily scrutinized by lawyers, HR professionals, and PR experts before it ever sees the light of day.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this fundamental question. Can a global giant truly guarantee uniform ethics in its smallest branches? Look, policies are written in boardrooms, sure, but culture is lived on the regional floor. The TCS Nashik case is a stark reminder that formal policies are only ever as strong as the local mechanisms that enforce them. So keep this case study in mind the next time you read about corporate oversight, because the real test, it's always on the ground. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep asking those tough questions.